What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is because people get to know you, they get to see you.
Making those efficiencies to maximise service profits as well as just product profits.
When you lose the enthusiasm, that's the point to move on.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated, yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times. And only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. My guest today on ScaleUp Radio has managed to build a business that combines beer and cider with Iron Maiden, with international travel and a whole host of other great things. And not only that, managed to build a business that now turns over £10 million, has 10 full-time employees and is showing 165% growth in turnover and 214% in net profit over recent times. So a very successful business. And listening to David Davies, who is the founder of the Sovereign Beverage Company, then I think you'll have lots of interesting takeaways from this discussion. And he started the business back in 2008, recognising a demand for UK breweries to sell their products internationally, and the business has gone from strength to strength. But it's not all been a straight line, as it never is with any of us. There's been plenty of ups and downs, and David shares some of those and talks about some of the key lessons and learnings, including how he's had to develop himself as a person along the way. So a fascinating interview, one that I know that you're going to enjoy, whether or not you're a beer drinker, a cider drinker, or whether indeed you like Iron Maiden. There's still a lot to take out from this episode. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm delighted today to be joined by David Davies, who is the founder of the Sovereign Beverage Company. So, David, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Thank you very much, and very, very happy to be here.
Great stuff. So, the Sovereign Beverage Company, there's a bit of a clue in the name, but what's that all about? What do you do?
Yeah, so in its simple terms, we are a company and we export, sell and distribute premium UK brands, and our main core focus right now is beer and cider.
Great stuff. And how long have you been doing that?
We started the business back in 2008, so we've been going now for about 15 years.
Right. And what's the market like? You know, what's the competition like in your world?
Well, I think certainly in the last 5 years, I think what's helped is there's been a much greater, I think, with social media, and also, you know, the world's getting closer. So there's a lot more information, a lot more interest. So I think in the UK, a lot of the beers and ciders become a lot more popular. Some of the crafts or more premium products. And I think this generally has sort of travelled or translated into foreign markets as well. So I think historically, you know, starting the business, quite difficult to try and sell those stories abroad. I think people through the internet and social media, videos and things are starting to bring it to life more. So I think it's more than anything, it's just generated a lot more interest in the categories. Okay.
And how does the market work? How does the money flow? How does the business model work for you?
So when I started the business, I think what I found is I went to see a small brewery that wanted to export. I was working for a different company at the time. I was selling a different product, but they asked me if we could help with their export business. And effectively, what I found was from speaking to them, but then also some of their prospective customers, was that actually there's a demand to sell, there's a demand to buy,
right?
And where kind of falling down was the middle bit, the supply chain. So a lot of what we do is about both for customers and suppliers, and it's a B2B business. So you are effectively managing the supply chain, and from that perspective, looking at all the key elements. People like to talk about sales and distribution. Obviously, that's a huge part of what we do, but it's looking at the compliance side of things, the logistics of getting the product to the market. Is the company, are they the right fit for the brewery? Is the brewery the right fit for the customer? So I think the key thing for me in the beginning was that there was demand to sell, there was demand to buy. And where it was all falling down for me was around the supply chain stuff.
Right. And is that due to the complexities? It's hard for a brewer to work it all out, and it's hard for an importer, somebody that wants to import some beer. It's hard to manage that supply chain themselves, is it?
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly for look at UK brewers, they are very focused on their domestic market, brewers or suppliers. And I think that in terms of an international footprint, I think there's genuinely always an appetite to do that. A lot of brand owners are really proud to sort of sell their story abroad. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a different market to the UK market. And there is obviously changes to that in terms of complexity. So certain label requirements could be considered. Maybe the SKUs overseas are slightly different to what is required in the UK. So there's almost a change of business there to some extent.
And how do you choose? Because it sounds like you're fairly exclusive, as you say, premium. How do you select the brands that you work with, essentially?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, the question, regardless of all these sort of intellectual supply chain discussions, I think the first thing that a customer will ask is, you've got an importer there, and generally importers, they won't just buy UK products, they will buy products from around the world, and they've generally got a very strong portfolio. So they are, what they're looking for is, they'll want to know what distribution the brand in the UK has got. They'll want to understand a bit more about what support's in place, how long has the producer been going, what sort of rewards. So I guess what they're trying to do is they almost want to have a story to take to their customers internationally. So for me, it's been quite important that it's what they always ask first.
Is the story?
Yeah, the story is important. The heritage, the history, the accolades.
Yeah.
Very important stuff.
And okay, and then you're enabling them to purchase direct, but you're managing that supply chain for that distribution for them. Is that, you're not actually storing any of the product yourself, are you? From what I understand.
No. So in fairness, starting the business, and I think we did this from probably more of a cash position in the beginning, but we continued with this model today. So the first 5 pints we sold, the model was we sell before we buy, we don't hold stock, and get paid before we pay. That way,
brilliant. Yeah, it's
a very slick supply chain, and ultimately the suppliers, they get paid. As I said in the beginning, we didn't have the luxury of holding stock and moving stock, but it forces into, I think, which is probably the right way to do business. So if you look at Thatcher's and Green King, in respectively in their categories, the biggest products in their sector in the UK, they have provided Sovereign, in a partnership with exclusivity for the world within their contracts. So they very much kind of bought into that model, and because actually what that model does for them, it reduces a lot of complexity in the brewery.
Okay.
And also saves them a lot of costs as well.
Great. So you're able to arrange those exclusive deals then that again mean that you've got that real value, additional value when it comes to the importers.
Yeah, and I think also, so just to add to that, if we've got long-term exclusive contracts, we can also offer that back into the distributors, retailers internationally as well. And what that does, it gives them that security and longevity for them also to invest in those brands to help them build and develop as time prevails.
Excellent. So can you give us an idea of, you mentioned a couple of brands already, like Green King, but can you give us an idea of the size of the business, the kind of brands that you're working with?
Yeah, so I mean, we work with, as I said, we work with Green King, we work with Thatcher's, we work with Marston's, we work with a company called Inners and Gunn in Scotland. We're very fortunate to work with Iron Maiden. We created a brand with them in partnership 10 years ago called Trooper. It's actually the 10th anniversary this year, which has done phenomenally well. We do a lot of own label. So from that, maybe some of the smaller brewers in the UK, we enable them to have an export business to add another dimension to their business. But I think what we've always tried to do is we're not a wholesale business. We're not, we are very much about brand building. So we kind of try and select the best in the category, and we grow from there. So to give you an example of, sort of sales, I mean, we have a vision to be selling 25 million pints annually by 2025. We started that in 2020. We were selling 5, and we're now up to about 18 million pints per annum. So our vision is well on track to do that. And for any brewers listening, that is, this year we will sell 70,000 hectolitres.
Okay, great. And yes, as you say, brewers listening, that will mean something to them more than it probably does to me. But it sounds a lot.
Yeah, 15 million pints. So a lot of hangovers there.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me about the link with Iron Maiden, because I think that was partly what led to your charity bike ride, wasn't it? Was there a link there?
Yeah. So obviously Iron Maiden, absolutely probably one of the biggest rock bands from the UK. Actually, Bruce, who's their obviously their lead vocalist, huge beer fan. So they were looking to do a beer 10 years ago, and they joined forces with a formidable company called Robinsons in the UK. And we were working with Robinsons. We were doing their international business sales at the time, and they approached us. And actually, I was a bit unsure at the time, but thankfully, my operations director, Morgan Holden, who's a huge Iron Maiden fan, recognised this as probably a game-changing opportunity. Right. And it was a great partnership.
Great. And tell us about the bike ride.
The bike ride, the bike ride was grueling. So we went to Argentina and went into Uruguay. Rod Smallwood, who's the manager of Iron Maiden, he set up. I think he's raised over £5 million now. So basically, it's an affinity of people that he's met through the industry that he believes are good people or good businesses with a common goal for being successful, but also trying to do the right thing. So I was very fortunate to be invited onto that after chinging a glass with him, as everyone else was on that trek. Yeah. And I found myself in Argentina for a week, cycling for probably about 100 miles in 35 degrees temperature. Very grueling, but great fun. And lots of Trooper drank as well, by the way.
Brilliant. Yeah, of course you need to rehydrate, don't you? Yeah. All right, very good, very good. All right, good. So what are some of the big challenges that you face then in your world?
Well, I think the last, I would say so it's a personal thing, and I think the last few years have been very different for everybody. So I think if I look at that, some of the challenges we've found, certainly around transport costs have been a challenge. Yeah. We found that obviously Brexit has been difficult. I think more around, not so much I think I would say the demand of the products from the UK has never faltered. Mm-hmm. But I think the information around how to trade, that's probably been more of a stumbling block. So we've had to work around that. for us, a big thing actually in the last sort of 12 months has been the war in Ukraine with Russia.
Right.
Both those markets are big markets for Sovereign Beverage. We made a decision that we have our friends in Russia, but unfortunately, until things have settled down, we made a decision not to trade there, and we've supported our friends in Ukraine. So we, in fairness, in the beginning of the confrontation, we worked with all our suppliers. We probably raised, I don't know, about 30,000 pounds worth of free stock for the troops on the front line. So I guess at that point it was very much more. It was less about how much we were trading, more about trying to do the right thing. So, and actually, in fairness to Ukraine, it continues. And they would probably want me to say this. They are still trading well in other parts of Ukraine. They
Right.
continue to be a top 5 market for Sovereign Beverage. And we do everything we can to support that relationship.
Interesting. Very good. And I don't want to labour Brexit and whatever, but to a certain extent, if part of your value proposition is simplifying the complexity in it, did that actually make it more attractive in some ways and help you?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the business is 100% international. So I think you've got to, I think I get it, a lot of businesses domestically are very much focused on the home market, whereas we are 100% overseas. So our opportunity within this new era was to find the opportunity to remove complexity. So we very quickly worked with the government. We got some funding to develop our systems. We were on the ball in terms of compliance on labels. We've been able to communicate that with our suppliers. Our customers have been very involved in that. So I think Brexit, unfortunately, has probably put some companies off from exporting, but fortuitously for us being on the front foot, we've actually gained, and we've performed extremely well through the EU post Brexit.
Great. Good. So I want to take you back kind of to 2008 then. What got you started in the first place?
Yeah, so I think I'd probably go back a bit further than that for myself as an individual.
Yeah.
Always wanted to have my own business. I think it was just what I always wanted to do. However, I sort of learned quite quickly that having different ideas and doing a business, it was there's lots of ideas, but it's almost trying to find the idea that works. So in the end, I would say probably in 2004, I just pigeonholed sort of 10 commandments. I can't remember them all because I know you might ask me that, but I noted down in principle a few things for me that were to start a business that were really important as a stress test. And every idea I had after that, I kind of used that, and nothing came close to it. A lot of those things were about, for me, traveling, culture, obviously, being able to be sustainable financially, but to see the world, lots of different things and varied. And I went to a meeting. I was actually selling teddy bears.
Okay.
And we made some really good teddy bears, and you could brand them and have them in any colour you wanted. But I went to see a brewery that had a pub group at the time, and the gentleman that I was meeting said that he had no budget for teddy bears, but jokingly said if I could help him with his export, he'd be really happy with that. And so I drove back home, got home, asked some questions, did the stress tests, and it was the first thing that came that actually I thought, okay, so that's how we started effectively.
Very good. So no particular experience in that world then beforehand?
No experience, just very passionate about the products, very passionate about British products, and very passionate to get out around the world and have a voice.
Right.
And have some fun as well.
So how did you get started then with the you've now got the kernel of an idea?
Yeah.
Somebody that might be a customer, but how do you actually get started?
Well, just went to effectively realised, I think coming back to the beginning, what we were talking about was obviously what I recognised earlier was there was a demand for people to buy from a brewery, and there was a demand for the brewery to sell to the customer, but it was the whole bit in the middle. So I probably spent 6 months talking to people in the logistics, people that have done export before, and just trying to learn a little bit about the sort of granular things, about how the process could work.
Yeah.
Then built a proposition, and then went to see some breweries alongside the brewery I've been to see, and I think fortuitously they were all not endeavoured by export, but saw more of an opportunity, and effectively 3 or 4 breweries gave me exclusivity on their brands for a 12-month period on the basis that I could find a better way of doing it that was more strategic and a bit more long-term than what we were doing.
Okay, so right from the start, people were prepared to give you a degree of exclusivity.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's probably an area that, I was, surprised, but I was surprised that, there was probably not more being done with some of the breweries at the time, which obviously we saw as a massive opportunity. And I think also to say that the UK is one of the most, it's a market, there's certain markets around the world for any product or category that people want to do well in or be successful or have a provenance in, and the UK is one of those. So I think there's probably a lot of focus on there, less focus internationally at times. So I think it's probably the right idea at the right time.
And was this you said we a moment ago, were you on your own at that point? Were you with somebody else?
Yeah, no, I was on my own at the time, but I was introduced to as I mentioned his name before, Morgan Holden. Introduced to Morgan, tried to set out an outline sort of vision in terms of, look, I think there's an opportunity here. I don't know where it's going to go, but I think we're onto something. And he bought into that. We bought into each other, more importantly. And then we just said, let's get out and do it. And I think it's interesting, talking now, I can, people talk about vision now, I can give that, I've got all these great things, but at the beginning, you just need to get almost a sniff of an opportunity, and then you just need to go and make it happen.
Yeah, a bit of hustle to start with, roll your sleeves up and just get the deals done.
Yeah, we had no idea. It was very much a trading company in the beginning, and we had to do that for a number of years for many various reasons to bring cash into the business, to stabilize the business, to have money to invest in the business. So in the beginning, yes, we had some breweries, but there was no real strategic plan. It was just we need to make some money so we can reinvest in the business and hopefully take the dreams to the next level.
Yeah. And how many people are there in the business now?
So in the business now, we have full-time, we have 10 people, and we have a couple of non-exec directors.
Right. And what were some of the milestones then along the journey between setting up in 2008 and where you are now? What some of maybe the inflection points?
So I would say that first thing was we developed, we export obviously beers and ciders. We developed a separate business which has provided a bit of a cash cow, where we manufacture, we create a product for steel kegs, and we manufacture those. Right. And that provided us, at the time we had some debt in the business. That business enabled us to, which was very successful. That sort of cleared our debt as a business. I think the next milestone, I would say, we invested in our own systems. So we are now, even though we're a company of sort of 10 people, our turnover is 10 million. We work in 70 countries. Our growth in the last 3 years has been 165%. Our net profits been 214% growth. So we've spent a lot of money on that system in terms of infrastructure. And I think that the growth we've had and the scale we've had in these last couple of years, the milestone at the time probably didn't feel like it, but what we invested in the business then has enabled to have the growth sort of come COVID and the way the world has changed. So I think even though we didn't know what was going to happen, I do feel that as a milestone, the business invested before the growth, and we create a lot of capacity to our business now. Even the growth we've had, we're still at 8% capacity if we were a brewery. So we've got a long way to go before we need to put a lot more money into the business. So on that basis, our investment is in people and the team, and I think that is what I've learned is maybe not a milestone, but very much. You can take a business so far. After that, you need a process, and you have a really good team behind you. So that was pivotal. I think actually, talk about milestones. I think the support we've had in the last sort of couple of years from some major suppliers in the UK. You talk about Thatcher's Cider, talk about Green King, Iron Maiden with Trooper. We've signed exclusive contracts with these breweries for the world for the next 5 years. They've really bought into the dream that we've got. They're invested in it. They're committed to it. They provided us with the opportunity as a milestone to invest and develop our business. So we're so grateful for that.
Yeah, and that's phenomenal to be able to get five-year exclusive contracts. That gives you huge amounts of stability, doesn't it, moving forwards?
Well, I think it gives us stability, and it gives us the opportunity to invest. And it also gives our customers. It gives it shows we're not a trader, and we're not just a wholesale business. What it shows the customers, we can give them contracts to give them that security that we've got, to give them the opportunity to invest in their businesses and the brands that we represent. So I think that, I would say the biggest milestone for me is, I think a lot of it is, the other things are day to day, you go through the motions, but the huge milestone for me, the biggest milestone is our amazing suppliers that have given us that exclusive commitment for a period of time.
Yeah, very good. So if you were to sort of pinpoint some of the things that you've got right along the way that have enabled you to get to where you are, what you mentioned maybe a couple of them there. What would be some of the key things you'd say? Yeah, we did that well. We got that right.
I think a lot of the things stem from what we did wrong and then what you do right after.
Okay.
So I think I would say this business is two sides of the coin. I'd love to say from the start it was amazing, but it was very tough from the beginning. Made some decisions without the experience or for whatever reason, but actually those decisions get you to the other side of the coin, which I think for me, I would say more now is the team. The team we've got in, the culture, having a vision. There's two or three things we always talk about the business, and I think having that alignment, that is what really sets us apart now, and that is what is driving the business right now forward.
What advice would you give to people then looking to recreate and build a strong team culture and vision with that alignment? What advice would you give to people?
Well, I think the first thing is, there'll be great people working in bad organisations and vice versa. So, for me, in my own personal experience, I think the first thing, if you're a leader, and I didn't do this, and I think that there's very few things I regret because I think you learn from your mistakes. But I think one of the things that I wish I had done a bit earlier was set a vision. And I think if you can set a vision, then get people on board with it and articulate it, then I think the first thing you've got then is you've got a direction. And at that point, then you can determine, or you will see, in your team, whether that individual is aligned to that vision. And no matter in our business, again, we're a smaller business, but no matter, everybody knows that vision. We are all aligned to that vision, and we talk about that vision every week. So I would say set a vision. And I think in my experience, there's no sort of rocket science to this. I think that, for me, running a business, I'm very, very privileged in that I get to run my own business where I can put who I am is in that business.
Yeah.
So my business is me. And so I would consider my values as an individual to be strong and respectful and to always do the right thing. So I think if you do that and you're clear about that and set your values out clearly, so when you recruit and when you make decisions and when you're whatever you're doing, put it against those values. You know, you will quickly seed out people that are not right for your business or are right for your business, or how you approach an issue or how you deal with an opportunity. I think, you know, stay true to your values. And I think the final thing I would say is, and I guess it links for me personally back to values, is, you know, always do the right thing. You know, always do the right thing. And you know, all those things are, you know, niceties, and I'll finish on those, but also, you know, we're a very ambitious business as well. So, but I think, like, if you're ambitious or not, or wherever you are in the journey, I just think if you've got a vision and you've got really good values, I think you will attract the right things.
Very good. And how do you keep that culture going on an ongoing basis? You mentioned that you refer back to the vision on a weekly basis. I think you said, you know, how do you build those things in and build that culture and keep it going on a regular basis?
Well, I think you know, it was interesting actually, because pre-COVID we're in the office every day. Everyone's traveling a couple of hours a day and this and that. So great, good culture. The team gets on well. We have all the things like dartboards. We go for lunch, do all these things. But I think our culture is actually, with our systems and technology that we've got, our culture has got more laser focused and better since we've gone remote working 100%.
Okay.
What we've done is we've basically, our offices, we've removed ourselves from offices. In our industry, we have got the best systems and technology that we've seen. We've invested £1 million in that of our own business. Our data is live, so we've got really clear-cut information. And I think doing that and trusting people, you know, and making their environment better. And for our team, you know, they wanted to spend more time, less traveling. We set everyone off at working from home. That's worked really well for us. So I think in terms of culture, I think that we do loads of things as a team. We have the time we spend together, we try and make it quality. So we're very lucky with customers and suppliers. We may do a team trip away to Barcelona, for example. We do a management meeting. We might go and see Iron Maiden in the evening, and we'll have a few beers afterwards together. So I think what we've tried to do is we've tried to make, rather than just going in the office every day, the time that we spend together, we try and make it really valuable in terms of having our team meeting together, everybody seeing, keeping the agenda very tight and focused, so we're covering the right things, but then educating the team at the same time, and not just sales, but the whole team, seeing a particular supplier, for example, and then having some fun after. So it's less is more on this subject, and I recognise, because I get asked a lot about this, and it's not the same for every business. If you're in manufacturing, you can't do that, but our business model can do that. And if I've always felt if we don't do that, then we're not maximising the opportunity. So I think in terms of culture, that, you know, that is how we do it. And I think, sorry, I would say the last thing I would say is that we all work for Sovereign. And one of the big learnings I've had is that, you know, on the other side of the coin that I touched on was that, you know, people work for me, it's my business, but actually that's true, because untrue, sorry. We all work for Sovereign, including me. If I don't have KPIs and I don't do my job effectively, then I'm a you know, Achilles heel for the rest of the team. And likewise, I always believe that someone in sales or operations, if they're not doing that, then it's the same. So we are all equal and we all work for the business and we all have our roles.
Great. Then how do you go about then giving people you've got the culture and the kind of guide and the framework for people to operate in, But how do you keep that accountability and make sure people are working on the right things?
Well, I mean, in terms of that, we have really good managers in the business, so they work with their teams. It's a small knit team, so a couple of things. Obviously, we have KPIs for the team. We have a budget for the company to begin with. Everybody knows that budget. We then set individual KPIs, and I think in terms of the systems come into this again is that any member of our team, and we have access to pretty much all the data to everyone. Anybody can link in as long as somebody's got the internet, they can log on and see where the business is at. Mm-hmm. We have 3 or 4 key measurables, and anybody in the business can see that at any given time. So, so I think that we have a very, very good communication. We give autonomy to the team as well, to look on that and bring their ideas. So I think, and we have regular meetings as well. So whether that's on Teams, I say we meet once a month, but we have regular meetings where we focus on. We have a vision of X. Our vision is 100,000 hectoliters by 2025, and we have 3 or 4 disciplines within that we focus on, and we literally live and breathe that every day, and everyone sees that every day.
When you say disciplines, you mean key performance indicators?
Yeah. So a measurement would be, our GP, our sales, our net profit, and our margin.
So GP sales, net profit, and your margin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so those are your 4 primary key performance indicators.
Yeah, and you can, I'll log in every morning to see where we're at. It's a live data field, and everybody has access to that. And we actually run all our meetings through those KPIs as well. And then after that, we get into the sort of operational things. But ultimately, that is what we're working towards as a team.
Brilliant. Good. So you mentioned most of the things you got right have come from things that maybe you didn't get right. What other things, if you look back on it, would you maybe have done differently with a bit of hindsight?
So I think that genuinely, I think we've had some really good people in the business over the years that may not have worked out. I think from that, I'll take responsibility in that maybe a lack of direction, not for them not to know where the business wants to get to. So I think definitely an element there. I think genuinely a lot of the issue is just a growing business. You don't have the luxury. We're just a trading business in the beginning. We just have to make money to reinvest, and you don't. Unfortunately, at that time we couldn't give structure as much, or So I would say that I think that's definitely a huge thing. I think the big learning for me personally was putting a good team around you, good people.
Yeah.
I genuinely, and I would say this to anyone listening now, I'll tell you what, actually, the biggest learning for me personally was I was a really good salesperson, really, really good.
Right.
In my previous role, and I think I started Sovereign being a really good salesperson. But then the business goes so far, and that only goes so far as well. So I think from that point, I would say and I've spoken to so many leaders or in business that's, we start out with a profession that we do and then something else takes us on to do a business. So for me, the biggest learning actually was that, being a good salesperson to trying to be a good leader.
Yeah, really interesting point. And as you say, something that a lot of us face. If we're the best at something within the business, and we can't find somebody else to do it as well as us, then we just become the bottleneck, don't we?
Yeah. I was the bottleneck. It took me years to understand the value of the rest of the team. Not because I like people. I'm a very people orientated person. But just to understand the value in a business concept, that you need a system and you need a group of people to move your business forward if you want to move your business forward. Otherwise, it just won't work.
Yeah, no, very good. And just coming back to the investment that you made in the system, that was a pretty significant investment. $1 million, I think you said £1 million. What gave you the Were you able to fund that first of all from the cash flow of the business, or did you have to take in investment for that?
Yeah, so we the business model is, as I touched on, we sell before we buy, we don't hold stock, and we get paid before we pay out. So, and initially, as I was saying, it was out of we just needed to do it that way. But I think as we move forward in the business, where we are, and we still have that business to now, even though it was like, you know, a few pints then to 15 million now. And I think that having that model provides some discipline. So in terms of investment wise, you know, we're very fortunate. We're a cash-rich business. So, so our, you know, we have no debt. We have no debt in the business. We have a very substantial cash fund. And we make sure, well, we invest ourselves. So, okay, we invested £1 million. We've invested in other things as well. I would say the team, we've invested in them. We didn't make the £1 million investment in one fell swoop. We did that over a period of time. But I think the key point is that as a business, taking a long-term view, you know, we've not necessarily, I've always said, like, profit, you know, turnover is vanity and profit sanity. So for me personally, it's always been a lifelong business to build a strong, sustainable business. So we probably could have got money and investment to grow quicker, but we've gone the way we've gone, and everything as you said, everything we've invested in, we've invested in as a business.
Yeah. And I think that's another really interesting point, because, you know, you everything you've talked about, you could have, if your focus had been on short-term profitability and just maximizing the cash out of the bottom, then you probably wouldn't have taken that step to invest in the way that you've done. Yeah. But because you've done that, you've created a business that now you've got a cash flow positive business. So you've got the money in before it goes out. So there's no limit, no break on your growth rate, because you don't have to have funds to grow. So, you know, that's great. You've created a business with longevity with your customers from that exclusivity, but the five-year contract. So, you know, you've got that, as you say, that predictability, but also the fact that you can then invest in it, and a number of other things then that give you that real additional value to the business with that longer term view than necessarily just the focus on the profitability, but that comes with it along the way.
Yeah, I mean, our net profit growth has exceeded our sales growth profit.
Yeah.
And scale, you want to, you know, people look at things on what a good scale business, anything over 28%, you know, year on year. Well, our net profit is higher than that. Yeah. So we've grown our business substantially. But our profit has scaled substantially as well. And I would hope that if any customers and suppliers are listening to us on now, they would retain the fact that we own the business. Our business is about less is more, and investing in the products and the customers we've got. We will hit our vision not by bringing in another 5 or 6 suppliers, but by getting really focused on what we've got and looking at our customers. And our sole objective with our customers is, we want you to grow your business, and we want you to be more profitable than you are today. That's all we can. We can achieve that on both sides. Where we sit in the middle, we've done our job. That is what we're about.
Yeah, great. So what is it that you've been in the industry for quite a long time now. What is it that you love most about your industry?
Diversity. Love the diversity. I mean, when I started, it was about microbreweries. Then it was, you know, big brands, and then we've had the whole craft thing, we've had cider, so and people as well. I think, you know, I genuinely enjoy the sector. I enjoy the people. I feel very fortunate in the sector that we're in. It's really good fun. I mean, you know, having the opportunity to create a brand with Iron Maiden, you know, one of the biggest rock bands ever. I mean, it's great. And I think, you know, to combat that, I am probably one of the luckiest guys sat on the other side of the screen that you could ever be with, in terms of having all that, having a really profitable business, but actually every day working with a bunch of people which is growing ever, but really inspiring, really hardworking, and totally buying into the vision that we've got as a business. I mean, you couldn't make that up for me.
Yeah. So is it all a bed of roses, or if you had a if you had a magic wand, what frustrates you? What would you change if you
I'd say it's the swan on the lake, and I think it's the same for us all. I think you have these moments of greatness, and it makes everything worthwhile. But no, I think a lot of the, I'd say a lot of it, and I think this is why credence to the team, fair play, is that it's not easy, and I think that international business is a challenge. There's a lot of complexity that goes with that, labels and taxing duties and Brexit, and there's a lot of things that go in front of that. But I think where we win is, yes, we've got the fabulous team, but we've got fabulous suppliers as well. And when we get things, and customers, when we get things wrong, I never feel like it's someone that's slipped because they don't care. I think it's just inherently supply chain issues that we work through that together. So yeah, so I think we're all on the same page with this, but inherently, things happen. There are always challenges in business, and I think a lot of business is about problem solving.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a huge amount of business about problem solving and about making great decisions consistently, isn't it? And you made me think of a phrase that somebody else told me a while back just then, which is when things go wrong, you don't blame the person, blame the process. So look for the
I would absolutely agree with that. It's we've tried to systemize the business as best we can, but understanding, I mean, we've got 70 countries we trade in, we've got 150 biggest distributors, retailers. We have a team of 10 or 9 or 10, including me. And we manage that through one system operationally. So everything goes through. So I think that, we try and systemize the process as much as we can, both to make it easy, more profitable for us and our suppliers, but also on the basis that we want to scale our business. That is, and we've grown exponentially since COVID. I think that's a lot down to the model as much as the suppliers. But I think also, if you can do those things well, it gives you a little bit more breathing time to have some time face to face with suppliers and customers. And I think that, that is so important in the process as well. Certainly in B2B, we have a systemized business, which is hugely scalable, but we have very strong relationships personally with our suppliers and customers. That is the backbone of the business.
Yeah. All about those relationships. Yeah. And I mean, you've mentioned the 25 million pints vision. What's the legacy that you want to leave? Is there a legacy other than that? What?
Yeah, for me, I want to be the best. I think it's always good to be the best, and I would say strongly the best in the world at one thing.
Yeah.
And we want to be the best in the world at selling and distributing premium products around the world. So that is everything we're trying to do. And I think that as much as the vision, that focuses you on doing one thing particularly well, as opposed to trying to do lots of different things so being the best. And when I say it's difficult to define that, but I think it's more about your peers saying that as opposed to anybody else. So I think if our peers in our sector, ultimately to be the authority in what we do, we will want to be the authority. If anyone in the world is trying to buy a product from UK, beer or cider or different categories, or sell, the legacy is we want them to come to Sovereign first. We want to be the company that people go to.
Brilliant. Superb. Lots of really great advice and experience. Thank you very much, David, for today. You all right for a couple of quick fire questions before we close?
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Great. So if you were to go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Set a vision.
Yep. Perfect. You've obviously developed, you're into the self-development. What books or podcasts or other resources have helped you on your self-development journey?
Yeah, so I think for me, I love the red ocean, the blue ocean. Yourself into the blue ocean as quickly as you can with your business. I've read Jim Collins' Good for Great. I would just, as a general rule of thumb, I would read up on as many things as you can. As a leader, you read books and digest them, and I think reading has really helped and shaped me. I think if you run a business, it's quite lonely. You can't always afford to have a mentor or this. So my advice would be read downtime, read as much as you can, different books, take from what you can. I make notes on books. I rewrite the books into 10 pages. I do lots like that. Every book I've read, I summarize it in 10 pages, no more than a couple of thousand words. And I go back to that every now and again. And so I think really good way for people to learn and develop and just try new things.
Yeah, excellent. Very good advice. You're obviously like your technology, having built your bespoke software system, but any particular apps or other bits of technology that you find particularly useful?
I read a lot of the Times on. Do you know what I mean? I spend most of my time probably on Skyscanner trying to book me flights for where we're going, if I'm being honest.
Skyscanner, yeah, very good.
A great one if you're international business. I don't have, apart from travel and stuff, generally I don't have many more apps I could probably share other than Skyscanner, which probably is probably a bit weak as an answer. But
that's great. Are there not any beer and cider apps or anything like that we should be aware of?
No, not yet. We tried that, but not yet. So,
all right, good. Who would you say has had the most influence on you as a leader?
I say my mum.
Okay, great.
I just mum. Yes, just just a great person, very personable, very driven. And actually, I think one of the biggest qualities that I've got from my mother is I'm genuinely interested in people.
Right.
I really like people, and I'm really inquisitive with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, ask questions. Always ask questions. Even questions when you think shouldn't ask a question. Just ask that question, like clarify things for yourself. And I think my mother is she always does the right thing by other people. So I think I probably get a lot of my values from that.
Yeah.
I would say in terms of starting the business, 100%, believing in yourself, doing your own thing, the reason you're doing it, and just getting out and doing it. I think my mother was a huge influence on me for that.
Brilliant. Well said. And what's your most successful way of generating new clients, new leads, prospects? What's your most successful tactic?
Well, I think in the beginning it was very much, interestingly, in the beginning it was very much around getting on the phone, contacting people. People didn't know who we were, what we did. But I think certainly in the last few years, I think genuinely, obviously, very appreciative of the time today. I'm going to have the opportunity to put this out to, other people, customers or suppliers, and hopefully they'll get a feel for me and the business and what we're all about.
Yeah.
So I think modern term, I think, being able to have the opportunity to do these things are great. I think the fantastic publications that we do around social media with Thatchers and with Green King and Marsden's and the other suppliers, I think fantastic. I think, and actually just getting out to see people, and word of mouth is, in any walk of life, in our industry, that it's not, even though it's a huge industry, there's actually quite a few players in there. So I think building a good reputation in there and having people want to work with you. I think we're very fortunate now in the position we're in, where we do get weekly different breweries wanting to work with us and customers. So I think we've built ourselves over a long period of time a really strong reputation. And I think even with people that want to export or want to, even if we're not specifically interested in that opportunity, either myself or a member of the team will always take that call, and we will always try and help people, and any advice we can give and share, we will always provide that. So I think it's just a combination of being interested in people, interested in your industry, knowing what's going on, and just trying to help people.
Brilliant. And if people would like to get hold of you or find out more about Sovereign, what's the best way for them to do that, David?
I'll just get them to drop me an email. So the email is david@sovbev.co.uk.
Brilliant. Good. Well, we'll put that in the show notes. And David, thank you very much indeed for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today.
Kevin, thank you very much for the opportunity and some great questions. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.